Hey, welcome to another episode of the Vocal Minority Report. It's your boy MC. Got a couple quick notes before we get into the episode. This episode is sponsored by audible.com. Make sure you go to audibletrial.com/vocal report for your free audiobook download and 30-day trial. They've got over 180,000 titles to choose from. Make sure you go check them out. Again, that's audibletrial.com/vocal report for your free audiobook download. Also want to let you guys know that this conversation with Jada Gomez was recorded Sunday morning, so before the second presidential debate, and just want to put that out there because obviously we don't touch on the topics in that debate when we get into our time speaking about Trump and Hillary. So enjoy the episode. We'll holler at you after the show. Peace.
Previously on the Vocal Minority.
Are you part of the silent majority, or are you part of the vocal minority?
Motherfuckers, go. Attention, please.
If America can be saved, and I don't know if it's too late, but it'll be through a radio show like this new kind.
This shit here feels like a whole entire world collapse.
The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers.
It's the vocal minority.
The revolution will
Welcome to another episode of the Vocal Minority Report. As always, you could have downloaded any podcast in the world, but you're here with us. We appreciate that. Have another great show for you today. Have a wonderful guest. Our guest today is a journalist and music aficionado. She's the digital deputy editor at Latina and is ready to talk fantasy football with you anytime. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a woman who has openly admitted that her spirit animal is a combination of Kanye West and a rainbow. We have the great Jada Gomez on the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. And yes, I feel like I am literally the combination of a rainbow and Kanye. However you see that in your mind is pretty much who you'll get with me.
I like that because that's definitely open for interpretation. But yeah, no, I can dig that for sure. So it is Sunday, and we talked about, I mentioned your fantasy football. So I'm assuming you got your lineup all set and you're ready to go.
Yes, you know what? It's so sad. I'm usually really, really good at fantasy football. Like, I usually come in first or second, but I've been so busy that I've been missing setting up my lineups, and that's when you know, like, I'm really busy because I never let that slide, but I'm so happy that Brady is having a good game. He made a sick pass to Gronk. I have both of them on my team, so hopefully I can redeem myself. I think I'm in, like, 11th place right now, which is, like,
man.
not the usual. Yeah, that's not me. So hopefully this week, with the return of Brady, the Brady-Gronk connection, I can get back up there because I'm just, like, I'm usually so on it. So I'm, like, pitiful this year, struggle bus.
Struggle bus. Okay, I guess you. All right. All right. Well, okay. Well, then you definitely got to get your game up. But being busy, obviously, I mean, it's an election time and a lot of stuff in the news. So, and I want to hit on some of the stuff you've been doing around that as well. But but first couple of things, I'm from Dallas, or we're in Dallas, so I have to ask you some stereotypical New York questions, if that's cool with you.
No, that's totally fine. I actually love Dallas because a couple of my best friends just moved down there, and so I visit every year for their son's birthday. He's like 4.
Okay.
So I go down there. I make sure I cover up my giant shirt. I tried to go out there trying to be all New York, and they quickly schooled me that I was in Cowboy Nation. So
no doubt.
I have a lot of love for Dallas.
Oh, that's good. All right. Well, cool. Yeah, no, it's a good place for sure. And conversely, I really like New York. Actually, every time I go, I've had a good time. It's been about 4 or 5 years, but I like New York a lot. But so I'm just going to have a couple of things I just have to ask because I assume that you've either done something very cosmopolitan today or you're about to, you might go to Central Perk or some other cleverly named coffee shop and hang out with your friends, or walk your dog through actual Central Park after having stopped by some pop-up juice bar, and that's after being out all night at a comedy / all-night party in an abandoned warehouse. So I don't know if that's your life or if that's an episode of Girls, but
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think it's so funny that you say that because my friends say that I'm pretty much like a hipster puppy mom. So I literally was I'm not the stereotypical out all night kind of going through the One Oaks and all that. That's not really me. But I can say I am that stereotypical fit New Yorker who goes to, like, usually I go see my trainer for, like, kettlebell boxing, and then I go to, like, the juice bar across the street. Oh, my God, I am the stereotypical New Yorker. But I am a hipster puppy mom, and literally you just caught me. I came from the grocery store and bought some sweet potato and all these ingredients for, like, puppy treats. So on Sunday when I'm watching football, I'm usually baking either for, like, my family or for my dog. So today I'm baking
Wow.
for my dog.
Okay.
Super New York.
I love it. I love it.
I love to say, it's like, I don't do those things. And I'm like, well, actually, yeah, so I am.
Well, no, that's cool. I'm glad you didn't disappoint. See, that's good. So that's perfect. but no, I feel you. That, I guess that's the thing now. Are these organic dog treats? Like, are non-GMO organic dog treats? Like, everything is,
Yeah, well, so literally I'm pretty much kind of a foodie and like a health nut. So, when you start cleaning up your own diet, so like I'm like no dairy, I try to go gluten-free, you start to think about like what you're feeding to people in your family and then naturally your dog. So if you just look at like dog ingredients, it's always like byproducts. Like it's the bottom of the barrel of what's the bottom of the barrel of our food.
Right.
So what I like to do is always like, it's not like super like organic, but I try to just I'll try to make things with whole ingredients. So it's like, okay, well, I know.
Are you giving your dog quinoa? Just admit it. You're giving your dog quinoa.
No, totally. I mean, maybe in 6 months, I will be. But like right now, we're on like the whole food.
I got you. Okay.
She loves it. Like literally, when she thinks that whenever I turn on like the oven, it's for her. So she's just waiting, and it's like, okay, where's my whole grain, my whole grain treats and my sweet potato like cupcakes? Like she's all about it. So it's totally spoiled.
No, that's good. That's what's up. Okay, well, and I think that says a lot of positive things about the kind of person you are. So no, that's cool. Okay, that must be that rainbow side of the spirit animal coming out.
Rainbow,
so,
that's the rainbow side.
So again, thanks for coming on the show. Like, there's so much literally to talk to you about, obviously outside of healthy dog treats and what you do in New York. So, and so hopefully at some point we'll have you back on to get into more things, music wise and specific, a lot of different things we can touch on. But so, we mentioned Kanye a little bit earlier, but part of the reason, or the main reason I wanted to have you on, was what is, I guess, the unfortunate robbery of his wife, Kim Kardashian West. And so I guess we'll kind of start at the top there, because I believe you were actually at the show and with some of the Latina staffers when Kanye cut it short and made his announcement.
Yes, I was there, and it was, so again, like, I'm a Kanye fan, and I've seen many of his shows, and I've seen him, go on rants about Amber and whatever, cursing out stage lights, like the whole nine. So he was performing, and it actually was a pretty great show. He stopped so LaGuardia Airport is literally right behind Citi Field in New York, so he stopped flights coming out of LGA for maybe like 15 minutes for like this crazy light show. Everybody was having a great time.
Oh, wow.
And then the music stopped and he's like, sorry, family emergency, show's canceled. So I kind of knew, I'm like, all right, something is going on. So I started heading back home. But people are waiting and thinking it's an encore, and I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think
Right.
It's like that.
Right.
And so maybe about 5 minutes after, while I was on my way to the train, I heard the MC saying, the show is canceled and Kanye is off site. So I'm like, oh my gosh, whatever happened is probably something, really serious. And so I was like kind of checking Twitter, seeing what was going on. And then we found out, unfortunately, what happened.
Okay. That's interesting to see his experience live. I believe there's a video out there, but you were in the audience or in the crowd there. And then, cause I'll tell you, my first thought wasn't sympathy or even empathy really, which I would say in normal course, I'm relatively, both, of those things usually, but so it's a little embarrassing to admit that a little bit, but and it didn't come from a place of me hating on her because she has millions, or I'm just more underwhelmed by stories like that. I guess initially, right? So I wanted to have you on to discuss why I should take this more seriously, even though I've come around now because it's been, I guess I've come around more so now after some reflection, obviously, but especially, and then considering that I have had my home broken into before and my car, and I know how terrible that felt, and I wasn't even there. So I can't imagine, being attacked personally to the extent that she was. So I was wondering if we could start there and maybe talk about kind of what we know, if you know anything about any new details, and then I wanted to get into just sort of the fallout and the media and society's reaction to it, and which I think opens a larger conversation about women's treatment in media as well in general.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, you're not alone in feeling like it was a hoax at the beginning of the whole fiasco. When I'm walking away from the concert venue, you hear a bunch of people who are just like, oh, well, someone better be dead after all this, or,
right.
It better be something serious. And so for me, I think that I always kind of come from a place of, for Kanye, I was thinking more in terms of Kanye, because at that point, right, we didn't know what happened. We didn't know if it was a Kim thing. Some people were worried that it was a Lamar thing. Like you definitely felt like it was like something serious, like a death or something.
I didn't even think about the Lamar angle, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So people were literally like, something like someone must have died. Like this is whatever happened must be really serious. And so for me, I took it more on Kanye's level at first, where it's like he's an entertainer. But he's also a father and a husband. So it's like, where do we draw the line of what he owes a crowd versus what he owes his family? So that's when I was kind of like, and I'm like the only one in the crowd that's not, I'm like, hey, well, we don't know what's wrong. Like,
right.
So I don't care. But, I definitely felt like, well, and also the show he was late. So people were complaining about that. He was about like half an hour late to the stage. And we only had about 20 minutes or so left of his show, so it's not like he came on and he left and it was over. But to your point about Kim, I'm not a Kim Kardashian fan by any means. I definitely do feel like I'm watching her life in real time anyway. Like actually, I don't
right.
most girls were like, oh, we hate the Kardashians, but we watch the Kardashians. And so I don't really watch anymore because like I'm seeing it happen on Snapchat in real time and all of that.
Okay.
So I think for me as a woman, I feel like women especially, we're vulnerable, right? So it's like I can't walk my dog past 9 o'clock at night because I'm in the dark. I'm in New York City and I don't feel safe. Like those are certain things that men really don't think about often.
Right.
But I think that, she does teach us something that we need to be careful with what we're putting on Snapchat. So I think she snapped that she was alone in her hotel room and, that pretty much, it's not an invitation at all, but if you're someone with poor intentions, it's like, oh, well, she's in Paris alone, this is my opportunity. But I think the fact that for me, like, if she was tied up and then she was like thrown into a bathtub, like you don't know. And I think that she said this, like, I feel like one of like Jonathan Cheban or somebody in her camp said this. It's like, you don't know what's coming next. Like if you're getting tied up and like thrown into a bathtub, like you don't know if you're going to be physically attacked.
Right.
You don't know, like if your belongings are enough. So for me, I definitely, I can understand why people are, very hesitant and everybody wonders if it's like some type of, fodder for the show and all that. But then when you kind of take all that away from it and you just think about it as like a woman, around her age and those fears of just being attacked, that's where my sympathy lies. And then also that she has children and the fact I'm so happy her children weren't there.
Right.
Just those things. So like for me, even though I'm not like, I'm not one of her biggest fans at all, but I'm just like, whoa, it would take me like a minute. Like I would need to have, like, if I were her, I would want Kanye with me at all times. Like, I wouldn't want to be in a room by myself for a little while before, feeling comfortable again. So that's where my sympathies as a woman lies.
And that makes sense. I'm glad you explained that because as you were talking, I was thinking about just taking away the celebrity and just that being any woman who is posting on Snapchat. Obviously, if a lot of women are in hotel rooms, on their own all the time, all across the world, literally. But, So if it was just, if it was my sister or, my ex or someone, someone I cared about or even didn't care about, like I said, just not a celebrity, anyone could be open to that. Anyone could be the victim in this case. So yeah, no, I'm glad you explained it like that, because that definitely is a perspective. And I guess that's one problem with being a celebrity, where you kind of forget that, well, no, she is just a woman. She is a mid-30s, attractive.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if she's attractive or not, honestly, but she's a mid-30s woman who was in her hotel room alone, who, was assaulted and robbed. So yeah, no, yeah, because what do you think about and we always talk a lot about on the show about media and how they shape stories and whatever else. Obviously that media is a large, broad term, but I'm just curious, do you have any fault in kind of the reporting of the story that contributes to how it's taken and how specific to her, and then the larger conversation about women in general, and as far as victim blaming? Because I feel like victim blaming is almost exclusive to women when we it's a rape case, or it's a, obviously men are victims of crimes as well, but children, whatever. But I feel like when we talk about victim blaming, we are often talking a lot about a story that deals with women. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
yeah, no, I agree. I think for me, as being someone in the media and then also someone who has kind of grown up with social media, I think that the media here, I'm going to say, is probably going to come second with fault. I think the fault here is social media and just a desensitization. Okay. So for me, I noticed when I'm, on the train trying to figure out what happened, why Kanye canceled the show, I'm seeing a lot of, so all of the social media, the tweets and posts that I'm seeing were pretty much reflecting what I was hearing in the crowd. So it's like, this better be a real thing. You cut your show. Like, we hate Kanye. We hate this. And people were really faulting him for cutting the show. And I saw other people, like other media friends, were like, well, it's his wife. So if his wife is in distress, the show has to take a back seat. So I think that really what it is we're seeing, along with media shaping the story, we're also shaping our own on social media. And then that story on social media becomes like the joke. So it's like, when can we start cracking on Kim getting robbed? When can we start pulling out the memes? When can we start Kanye? So I think that the media has some responsibility. From the publications that I'd seen following Kim, I felt like it was reported pretty straightforward. Okay. But I definitely saw the conversation. And I think that, first of all, the conversation on social media, like whether it's for something or against something, I feel like that is such healthy dialogue. I love it. So even though I might not agree with the memes and all that stuff that happens with serious situations, I like that we can take it there and say, hey, is she really punking us? Did this really happen? Like, conversations are healthy. But on the flip side of it, I do believe that it's just our nature. If you go back thousands of centuries, women would get stoned for, flirting, or what was perceived as flirting with a man or someone who wasn't their husband. So I think slut shaming is something that we see all the time among women, and white women slut shaming women of color slut shaming women of color. Like, I mean, it's like before you even get to the men slut shaming, the women do such a great job of that. So,
well, okay. I'm glad to hear you say that, because I've never heard a woman explain it that way. That it's because I'm always thinking, I interpret it when I do see it on social media, or the Amber Rose slut walks, and the people who are out there in the forefront of this movement. I thought it was a response to men objectifying women and things of that nature, which I guess it is, but the internal, mean girl thing, for lack of a better term, of women, hating and throwing shade, coming for each other. I didn't take that aspect into it, and then to race lines as well. That's interesting. So yeah, we might have to do a whole, we should do a whole topic on that actually, because anyway, so yeah, so I'll let you finish, but I want to bring that up.
No, for sure. I think, and I'm a woman who I grew up I went to an all-girl Catholic school, so it's like I've seen the mean girl shaming firsthand play out. But I do believe that men also, feel that way. And when it's somebody like a Kim Kardashian. Now, if this happened to Beyonce, you would know that there would be no one would say anything contrary.
Hey, I'd be over there in Paris looking for them 4 dudes with comb overs. If they come after Bay.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So you look at someone with like Kim Kardashian, who has posed nude multiple times on her Snapchat. Right. She's known for her sex tape. There's she definitely sells sex. So, and someone like an Amber who sells sex. So it's like women who are known for that get no sympathy when things like this happen.
But you know what? That's so weird though, because Beyonce is always half naked and dances very provocatively, and is and for lack of a better term, is as fine as Kim and Amber and all the these other. I mean, that's part of the game. So that's weird that she. So why do you think that Beyonce is so above reproach? I guess because she doesn't have a sex tape and didn't date a lot of rappers, I guess, before Jay-Z. But yeah, okay, that's interesting too.
Yeah, I think that there's just it's with Kim. I feel like with Beyonce, what people would say, and I believe I'm someone who I always put women are in one same level playing field. Like if you're a woman, I understand your experience. I understand women who, are more sexual. I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. There are women who are not. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Like, I think all of those things, it's a conversation that doesn't come up with men. Like, men are men. You can break that down by race. That's a different story. But I feel like with women, there are all these different types. Like, you're this kind of woman or you're that kind of woman. But no, I think what people would say is that, Beyonce has a talent, and Beyonce is homegrown, and Beyonce doesn't have her business out there, and Beyonce
True.
Yeah. Like, those are the things that women would say about why Beyonce is classier, quote unquote, than a Kim. But at the same time, she wears bodysuits. She's, super sexy, and we've seen her own her sexuality in a way that I love. Like, I love that we're seeing her come out of her shell. But yeah, it's a different playing field for a Beyonce or a Kim, and I don't think that is necessarily fair. But I do think that it's a lesson for Kim in terms of what she's putting out there. Like, she's so open. Like, she's so open with where she is and what she's doing with her. I'm sure you're not going to see her kids on our Instagram or Snapchat as much.
Right.
It's an example. So for at Latina, we did a story on what we can learn from Kim's experience in terms of Snapchat safety. So making sure that you're not snapping in real time. Maybe you you'll say, like, for me, I'll always say, like, I was at this show. So then that way it's like, she's not still there. She's gone. So it's almost late, things like that. But yeah, no, I think that women are judged so harshly, and I just hated seeing people take what happened to Kim and being like, well, it's your fault. Like, it really still is your fault. This dramatic thing is still because you did something, because you're Kim and you deserve it.
Right.
Which I think is so fair.
It's like we're dosing out levels of culpability here. Well, she posted too much on Snap. She shouldn't have had her jewelry. Yeah, but then there's still 4 guys that came over there and broke in there. So yeah, no, that's a really interesting dynamic. So I saw this headline on MTV.com, and I think you'll agree with this, but it says, from high school sophomores to high-profile celebrities, our society still dismisses women in crisis. And obviously, we've spent time here talking about that, so I'm assuming you agree with that sentiment, but and we've talked about the why, but I'm curious as to what the solution is in your opinion. I mean, it's like, how do we end racism? I get it. It's hard, but I mean, sexism and gender inequality, but this seems to be, there's a movement, we're hashtags and movements we talk about on this show all the time. That's where we live. I wonder what you or your colleagues just, what's your opinion on the solution or to increase that value for women, especially if it's rampant amongst, if it's female to female, and then obviously, male to female. Like, do you see that changing?
Yeah, no, I believe, and even just within this short conversation, I believe that talking about a certain perspective speaks volumes. So when I was able to say that, as a woman who's not a celebrity, how terrifying the whole Kim ordeal would be for me, then you said, oh my gosh, yeah, it reminds me of my sister,
right,
or my, women that I care about. So I always believe, and the girls at Latina would say the same as well, is that talking about something openly is always the way to go. And so if you see, on social media, if someone is saying, oh my gosh, like Kim did this to herself. And if you don't necessarily agree with that, and saying, well, actually, I don't agree with that. I think that I would have the same concerns as a woman as she would, and explaining why. I think the worst thing that we do is kind of like stay silent or just kind of chuckle along with it.
Right,
and that doesn't
right.
really help anything. So being open and saying, hey, well, or say, this happened to me. I had a similar situation as whatever, Kim or whatever. And then people will be like, oh my gosh, well, now I understand and now I kind of get it. Not to say that it's going to get rid of, sexism and slut shaming, because again, like I said, it's been going on for ages and ages and ages.
Right.
But on a personal level, on a ground level, you can kind of, have those conversations. I also think it's really important to have those conversations with young women so if you think about Kim's audience, right? Like the women over 30, whatever, we're going to be who we're going to be, and we're going to have the opinions we're going to have. But if you see a 15-year-old who loves Kim and is snapping away like Kim was doing and, is idolizing her, and I think it's damaging for that girl to see, oh, yeah, well, she brought it on herself, and she would be like, oh, my goodness, so if I am assaulted, maybe I shouldn't say anything because I brought it on myself. So I think really, really talking to the young people who are absorbing all of this stuff, and, we're talking about people that they love and adore. So I think that's really where it begins, just being open with the conversation. And I think for men, also, I think on social media for me, and sometimes it's cringeworthy because I'm just kind of like, we're all talking about thigh chicks and thoughts and this and that, and I'm like, okay, so where do I fall on this spectrum?
Right.
Like, okay, well, how do you see me? So I think men being conscious of what they're seeing on social media in particular, not in their closed groups. Like if you're at the barbershop and you're talking your trash, like that's whatever. But when, women are going to read or hear or see some of those comments, I think it would be good to kind of have that, would I call my sister this? Or would my mom be offended by this? If she saw this, would I be embarrassed? I think that's a way that men can really, really help. And I'd also like to say, too, that I believe that there are men who will post crazy stuff on social media who have my back. Like if I ever need, someone to kind of come in and, just kind of be protective or play that protector role.
Right.
They definitely do it. So I think that it's a matter of bringing that care that you might have offline, bringing that online is really, really, really helpful. Like that would just, if men would do that or just be a little bit careful about what they're saying online about women, that's like so much of the battle, really.
That's a good point. And yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, yeah, to be careful about the tone, because especially with social media, because the eyes that are on that and the people, those messages, because that can just be yet another conversation, and something said in jest, so you don't always know the tone, and especially a lot of times obviously people can tell. I do hate when people say, "Oh, you can't tell tone from text." Well, yes, you can, but at the same time, though, sometimes if you're very dry or you're just trying to, you're saying something in jest or whatever, then maybe that doesn't come across, or it could just be an ignorant comment that does not need to be said on publicly.
Yeah.
So
no, for sure, I agree. I think it's at certain times like I'll see things and me and my best friend who's on social media often, and we'll just see guys that we care about and I know care about us, and they'll say certain things about women, and we're like, oh my God, like, okay, they're doing it. So it's like, you usually just get offline, or it's like, oh, okay. So like, again, it's like, well, where do you fit? Like, where do you fit on that spectrum? Like, when they're talking about certain, like, dating things, and you're just kind of like, okay, well, I'm not doing that, and I'm not doing it. So
Right.
it's like, well, where do I fit on? Where am I on this totem pole?
Yeah, you know.
And I know that it's not done. Like, I know that it's not done with, like, malicious intent toward me. But as a woman, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, so you think that way too? All right. No, okay, got it. Kind of a thing.
Right. Well, yeah, that's interesting, because it's kind of like when I was a kid, and I remember I was walking with a good friend of mine it was after school, whatever, we were going to get something to eat, and he was commenting, he said something about sand niggers, and I was like, wait, what did you say? And he wasn't calling me a nigger. He was talking about, Indians or whatever. I mean, some brown person that he was too ignorant to, to articulate. But so I'm bringing that up to bring up like the kind of comfort level thing where in the spectrum thing, because I found out here recently that sexuality is a spectrum. I get that's new terminology. Let's say in the last 6 to 12 months, maybe it's been in the lexicon for quite some time, but for me, it's newer. So I guess if sexuality is a spectrum, then I guess, I don't want to say gender is a spectrum, but you're using the term spectrum. I'm trying to quantify, because I know, like, when I'm talking to a female friend of mine about, a relationship, and I might be speaking off the cuff or trying to be whatever. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Like she is a woman, or she might take that, I've been called to the carpet sometimes, or I think more so now, I am more hyper conscious of how of what I say and how I describe people. I try not to be so flippant, because, I could be offending the person on the phone or whoever I'm speaking with. And, I don't want to do that. So so anyway, I guess that's my large way of saying that. I guess it is bringing more consciousness to the conversation, these conversations. So, 100%. But I didn't plan to bring this up, but I think you kind of led me into it. So the Trump tapes, right? And specifically with Billy Bush and the P word and all that. So here's the thing. When you brought up, what's said publicly and, barbershop talk, what you say privately. And I'm going to make a weird parallel here that when I'm hearing Billy Bush and Donald Trump and whomever else they're talking, isn't that what they're doing? I mean, this is not defending, I'm not defending him or his comments or his treatment of women. I think that certainly speaks for itself. But in those audio tapes, what is that? No, the 2.5 minutes, whatever it is. I've only listened to, I heard the Tic Tac part. I've heard most of it. I mean, it's a little redundant, whatever at some point, but I'm listening to Billy Bush sit there and act like a guy. You know what I mean? Like he's after the whole Lochte thing. I've changed a little bit on Billy Bush, but anyway, and him trying to check Al Roker. But no. So anyway, I bring that up to say I just want to get your opinion on not necessarily what he said, but the reaction and the release in light of you. Just kind of, a barbershop conversation or a private conversation amongst men, or versus what's happening now, because I mean, we all know I'm not we're about to talk about Hillary here in a second, and everyone knows I'm not a Trump supporter, but I'm just curious, your thoughts on that. Yeah,
no, for sure. I mean, I bring up the thing about barbershop conversation, but it's more, and I'm not always in the barbershop, because that's not obviously where I would be, but
right.
I feel like that's the place where people can get really real and talk about like politics, or for Black men, it's a place where you can talk about like what's going on in terms of like race and like being stopped by cops and all that. And if a cute girl passes by, and, you say whatever about the cute girl, kind of like, I'm probably like Disney-fying it, but I always think of like Disney barbershop, like that's like what I think happens in barbershop. I could be totally wrong. Right. So much more X-rated than that, but that's what I think. But I think with Trump, I'm not surprised at all that he said what he said. I think he has been so overtly racist, so overtly sexist, and he always somehow gets away with it because of his white privilege. And I'm also pretty ashamed that he comes from Queens, where I grew up in Jamaica Estates. It's not indicative of any of the white people that I grew up with.
Okay.
Like, no one thinks the way he does, and I just hate the fact that he's become this example. But I think he's been able to dance around being overtly offensive to so many groups in so many ways because he is white. And that really is unfortunate that now the Republicans can't even get him out. Like, you can't stop the crazy train.
Right. Yeah. Right.
To your question, again, it's a matter of if you are in Billy Butch's position and some guy is like really, really like that. I mean, the stuff that he was talking about, I don't think that my guy friends or my father would ever talk about grabbing women in that way and getting away with it because they're the man or they're this or they're that. Like, I have enough like faith in like you, who I don't even know, that I know that you wouldn't be saying that. And if you are around a guy who is saying that, and for you to just be like, haha, yeah, that's funny. That's what I'm talking about in terms of like being an ally for women. It's like, no, that's not cool. Like, you can't, like, don't say that. Like, that's not going to fly with me.
Right.
That's what I think. It's just not being that silent participant who kind of like giggles nervously, but like totally is not okay with what's being said. I think that would probably be the best way to distinguish between the barbershop talk and then when the barbershop talk goes wrong and it's time for you to say something. Like, way wrong.
Right. And yeah, no, you know, and obviously, I mean, there's a difference between barbershop talk when you're in a public space and there, you know, and then there's, you know, just three of your boys in the car or wherever you're at in a more intimate setting. But to your point, yeah, thank you for thinking that I'm not as terrible as Donald Trump.
Right.
but B, yeah, I don't know that we're that crass. And then, yeah, cause it's just really ugly language. And I'm guilty of saying, you know, thank God Billy Bush has not hung around me 10 years ago. But I also I wasn't 60 years old 10 years ago and been doing this for years and years and have, you know, and run, you know, Miss Universe, you know, like the objectification of women and almost subjugation. Really, it's so crazy. So I'm like I said, I just wanted to touch on it, you know, a little bit because in a certain way, I do think it is a private conversation amongst men. So I guess I am defending, I'm talking out both sides of my mouth here, but it kind of is what it is. But, you know, but then I'm like, yeah, but like but that is a little graphic and harsh, especially considering him and his position. And then I think about conversations that we have. I'm like, yeah, I guess no one's talking about grabbing, you know, yeah. And if they are, but see, but that's a whole nother topic though. I wonder the responsibility and, you know, if a grown man is going to step up and say, hey man, all right, dude, like chill out. That like, hey man, you know, or if you might just sit there and nervously laugh. So no, that's interesting. So that's something to reflect on for sure. I'm sure that the men in the audience will reflect on that for sure. So, but okay, so we touched on him, and then now let's move over to everyone's favorite, our darling Hillary, which. I don't get all the Hillary hate, but that's again, we've kind of talked about that a little bit. So not that I'm a fervent dyed-in-the-wool supporter of Hillary, but I certainly don't have all the animosity over her being, you know, anyway. So, but with that being said, I know that you all got to go to her campaign and speak with the leadership there. And I wanted to get your takeaways from that because, you know, I know her campaign has made it a point to be very intentional in their targeting of women of color. And we all know the DNC leadership is full of women of color specifically. So, I wanted to know kind of exactly what that means to the campaign and how they plan to achieve that. And then ultimately, hopefully engage beyond this election, assuming they win. So please God, let them win. But anyway, so I don't know if you got into those things, but I was wondering, you know, if you can talk about your time. And I saw you mention energy for sure. So I wonder, you know, what was the energy like? And if you can just kind of recap that, and then I'm sure I'll have some questions on top of that.
Of course, yeah. So I was super lucky to go to Hillary's headquarters in Brooklyn. I want to just say that I'm really excited to be part of this movement among women's publications called #OurVoteCounts.
Okay.
And so the goal is a bunch of editors from every magazine you can imagine: Glamour, Essence, Refinery, Latina, obviously, Bustle, pretty much every women's publication that you can think of. We wanted to get as many women in particular registered to vote before the deadlines. And so the New York one is October 14th. So we've been putting a lot of energy behind that. We have a voter tool where you can go on, find your state on the map, and then it'll direct you to where you need to register.
Okay.
So I've just been really excited to be a part of that. So within that, we were invited to speak with a couple of Hillary's big execs on the top of her campaign. That we spoke to her campaign director, who is a Mexican American, and the head of her digital site, who is also Mexican American as well.
Okay.
And yeah, the energy was amazing. So, we went, I believe it was Thursday, really long week, super tired, was going to go do this Facebook Live, speak to some people on Hillary's camp. I will say I am a Hillary supporter, but I was more of an Obama, stan.
Okay.
He's biracial like I am. He has the ideals that I have. We have the same birthday. So I had all of the energy and everything was behind Obama. So I have it for Hillary as a woman, but still, it wasn't as concentrated as it was for Obama. It was just super pure. So anyway, walking into the headquarters, automatically you could just feel the energy of people they work from 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. pretty much every single day, tirelessly in that office, just making sure they're doing everything they can to get out her message. And the energy, you could feel it. It was thick. When you got into the door, there was a huge H for Hillary and a bunch of Post-its. And so I asked them, why do you guys have all these Post-its around? And he said, when we get tired or when we're having a bad day or there's, bad numbers or whatever the case is, you'll go and write a Post-it, put it on the wall. So he would say, this is for women's equality. This is for Black Lives Matter. This is for immigration. This is for my grandmother. This is for this. So you're just literally surrounded by, this sounds so hokey, but it's true, the hopes and dreams of her team.
Right.
Literally around the wall. And it's I have to do this for all of the people who are being affected by X, Y, and Z. And they also have a dog, which is so cute. Their dog's name is Winnie. And so while they're working overnight or having, a stressful day, Winnie's walking around, she's just chilling, and you can pet her and get some animal, that love from an animal, which I believe is just priceless. So that's what you feel.
Oh, wait, you're into animals? I would have never guessed that.
Right? As my dog is breathing over.
Right. He's when is this going to be over? So yeah, he's when is this going to wrap? Yeah, right.
When are you going to bake my sweet potato cookies? But yeah, so speaking to her campaign director, the mission is to make sure we elect the first female president. But not only is she the first female, really real hopeful, she's, almost there, but she's smart and she's known what she can lap Trump over millions of times just in knowing the law. I mean, this is a guy who said that stop and frisk was constitutional and then proceeded to defend an unconstitutional law. So it's that is scary. That is very scary. So I feel with someone, like Hillary, who she is a woman, she is polarizing because she's a woman. But the fact that she knows her stuff, she's if anyone's polished to do this, it would be her. So yeah, I think what I took away from there was just feeling empowered and just feeling if you are a woman of power, if you're a woman in power, you have a voice. There are all these other women who are seeing I don't need to be a secretary or this or that. I can be an exec. I can run with my ideas if I know what I'm talking about. Forget it. I don't have to be silent. And so that's really, really what I felt there. In terms of women of color, I think that she's been, and that's what was reflected in her, the diverse makeup of her team.
Right.
You can see, so the coder who's behind her app is an Asian woman. The two main campaign directors are Latina. you can see, like, so she's not just kind of like speaking what needs to be said. Like, she's actually got the people behind her doing what she's saying. And there were also men there too. I don't want it to feel like it was just like a Girl Scout.
Right,
but, like,
right. Okay.
definitely, there were definitely men who, believed in her vision. But I think for me, yeah, she's a woman and that's awesome. But she's also like, I can't think of someone more qualified, like just with the like, she's done it. So that's what she felt there. And it was hopeful. And I just felt like, yes, I need to be amazing. And then I saw Beyonce the next day. So I was just like, oh my God, like, I'm just all on girl power.
Right, no doubt. Okay.
But yeah, that's what it felt like there.
That's cool. That's good. I'm impassioned about her being president, considering the alternative. And I really don't have any issue with her. I mean, I took issue with her when she was talking crap about Obama back in 2008, but that's what you do.
Right.
That's what you do in a campaign. So, it kind of is what it is. But that's beyond that. Like emails, like you can miss me with that, like whatever. Like, I mean, not flippant, but like is she qualified? Okay, I think her resume speaks for itself, but I did want to, I'm glad to know that she's very intentional again with the women of color through her staff. But I was curious, I don't know what kind of questions you guys got to ask, but I was wondering if you were able to revisit the race question that was asked in debate number 1 by Lester Holt, because to me, her initial answer, while not surprising, was it was troubling because it was that kind of standard rhetoric of how great the cops are and then we have to fight terrorism. And I'm thinking, what does that have to do with race? And that's how she initially answered the question. Now, she came back after Trump gave his law and order stop and frisk rant and cleaned it up a little bit. So I was proud of her, for lack of a better term, for doing so. But like I was still a little, like, oh, come on, don't do that. So I was just curious if that question, if you guys were able to broach that at all. So, yeah, that's the question there.
Yeah. We didn't speak in particular about her response in terms of race, but I think you bring up a good point, and it's something that it's tough, right? So she's a woman, and she's following a president who is a minority, and I feel like I've even seen with Obama, like there's certain times, like especially in Ferguson, before it was just repeated instances of men of color being struck down by police officers. The most troubling to me was Tamir Rice, who was only 13.
Right.
And it's like, you're just seeing this, but even Obama.
13 and what was my man was on the scene for like 20 seconds before he shot him. I mean, like,
I mean, it was just, he was a baby. And so that's the one that really strikes me. But before all of this happened, and it was just more of the Trayvon incident, Obama, I know, and I love Obama with all of my heart. He was very much reticent on, it was like, you have to follow, the cops are in place and you got to follow, their lead, and you got to make sure that you're an upstanding citizen and all of that. So I feel like she was she's got to get these people who are not as liberal thinking as we are and don't understand the imperative, like the danger of what's going on with Black men and the cops, because they're just watching the news and they're not from New York or wherever, they don't get it.
Right.
And so I feel like she has to play it really, really, really straight. But then when Trump just completely decimated all of his credibility, even on the Republican end, it's like, okay, well, we know that that's wrong because it's not law anymore.
Right.
Then he has no choice but to come back with it. But I think that just speaks to politics in general, which I just think is so awful, that you have to be so vanilla in order to not be polarizing, considering that she is polarizing. But
right.
Just with what I can say, speaking with her team in terms of race, and just like gender equality, she definitely is doing more than you see on the campaign trail. So they spoke about, her visiting a Black church, and there was a little boy who had like lost his father to violence or whatever. And after the whole church cleared, she pulled him aside, and spoke to him and gave him this encouragement, and it meant so much to his mother and all that stuff. So she is doing those things, and I kind of like that we don't know about it, because I feel like that makes it more genuine.
Right.
But it seems like there's more to her than what we're seeing in terms of reaching out to these communities on a more personal level. So that's kind of what I got from that situation. But I agree. I wish sometimes, like even just watching Obama, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I wish you would just tell us what you really feel about what's going on with
right.
people. But, just being in that position, especially trying to get elected, I can't even imagine. I don't know if I could do it personally. I'm too opinionated and too like I believe too much in those issues, so I couldn't keep quiet.
Yeah, well, obviously, right. I'm there with you. So yeah, I mean, it takes a special kind of person. So I think you covered that well, though, and I appreciate you not cutting her any slack, in even though but still explaining, maybe the thought process there and what she is doing. I said, because behind the scenes is what matters. I mean, impacting. There's not much she can really do for me. Not that my life is wonderful, but she's not gonna, she's not really gonna, unless she gives us reparations or something. She's not really gonna do anything for me personally. So, but for our people and really the ones that really need it, that impacting that young man, and I'm sure that, and she's got a lifetime of service too. So, I mean, it's not like she could be a cutthroat attorney, litigator, and everything else she is in her career, but still a humanitarian and thoughtful. So.
Right.
So here's another thing regarding this, and it's not really Hillary related, but it has to do with Hispanic women and the disparity in wages for Hispanic women as it relates to white men specifically. And obviously, we always talk about but society talks about the gap there in salary or in pay. But I'm wondering if you could talk about how much larger that gap is when it specific to Latinas. Well, is Hispanic and Latina, are those terms interchangeable or no?
Well, it depends on who you speak to. So,
okay.
Using Hispanic, it means that you're including Spain.
Okay.
And Latinas is more the Latin American countries.
Okay, I guess that I should know that. Okay.
It's tomato to me. Like I use both interchangeably.
Okay. Well, it's fun because I'm in Texas, so I'm used to. But I feel like Hispanic is used like all the time, and I maybe misused. But anyway, okay, that's interesting. Okay, but anyway, okay, so the question of the gap when it's specific to Hispanic, Latina women, can you talk about that disparity specifically?
Yeah, so I believe at this point it's 55 cents to every dollar that a white man makes, and I think that's part of the mission of what we're trying to do at Latina in particular. It's to empower. I think that being a woman of color, I'm Afro-Latino, so being a Black woman and being a Latino woman, you are always you have to fight to be there. It's like you have to know more than the boys. You have to be smarter than the boys. You get to be tougher than the boys just to sit next to the boys, which is kind of insane if you think about it.
Right.
But I think that you are taught inherently that you're just lucky to be there. Like, you're just lucky to be there. So if you got a scholarship, like I got a scholarship to NYU, it's like, okay, I worked for this scholarship. I've got the grades just as much as the dude next to me, but it's an honor for you to be here, and you deserve to be. It's an honor. It's an honor. It's an honor. So you're growing up with this kind of like internalized, like I'm not really supposed to be here. Like, it's just it's a blessing that I'm even here kind of thing. And I think we have to get rid of that and say, like, I do deserve a seat at the table. I'm smart. I kick ass. I know what I'm doing.
Right.
Just as much as the guy next to me, and not being meek about that and not being shy about it. And it's something that I've definitely learned over the years working. And also having those conversations about wages. I think that when we are offered positions, it's very much, I'm just going to sign that contract because I got the job and I've got my benefits. And
right.
I don't want to challenge this because they might say no. And what white men don't do, which I've learned from my white male bosses who I have so much respect for. And I think that not all white men or men in power are awful either. I think that they get a bad rap. I've definitely had some amazing white male bosses that I learned from. So it's to the point where, they'll go in and say, so the other offer is giving me 10,000 more. Can you match that? If you can't match that, then I've got to walk. And you see the confidence, and it's just kind of like, okay, I know my worth, and this is what I'm going to do the job for. So being able to have those conversations with hiring managers and making sure that that you're getting paid what you deserve to get paid, and that you don't feel like it's just a blessing that I'm even here getting the opportunity. I think that that's something that we learn culturally that we should end. And I'm glad that it's known that men are getting paid so much more for the same work that, a woman of color like me would be doing, because we need to know that. We need to know that that needs to be fixed. I need to know that so that I can fight that.
Right, of course.
So yeah, I think that it's a mix of kind of letting go of some of those things that first generation born Latinas are taught, that it's like, oh, well, do your job and be quiet and you'll get ahead just by blend in with the walls. No, we shouldn't blend with the walls. We should be just as out there and proud and confident of what we bring to the table, and that's where that will change.
It's funny that kind of, it's almost like institutional marginalization. I think you really you captured it really well there, because it's the same thing that obviously black people, obviously this, but you're being both both black and Latino, but it's what, that marginalization, and then it's that internal dialogue that we have, amongst ourselves culturally, and that, because talking about wages specifically, like, why would I care if a woman of color makes what I'm like? She should, like, we do this, like, it's such a weird thing that anyone would pay someone differently based on, I guess it's not weird, things like that happen, but the idea that you wouldn't pay us equally, because like, why would I care? I would I think too, the expectation might be, if people don't know that, maybe that we do make the same amount of money. You know what I mean? Like, right. if you don't, if you don't know, but I guess when people of color generally make less than white men. So I guess we're all kind of floating around there, but I like that you gave that anecdote about the advice that, hey, we can do what they do. If you're qualified, you're qualified. So have that confidence to be like, yes, no, you can negotiate. You're not just happy to be here. I can't stand the happy to be, I say the happy to be here Negro, like, just like, don't do that, man. Like that's what they want. They want a bunch of you guys paying you all that mid-range, whatever. Like we need the people that work in, that are looking to achieve and thrive. So yeah, no, I like that. I'm glad you mentioned that for sure. It's a really good message.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think it's something, it's hard, right? Because if your family was working, if they didn't go to college and they don't have that professional, like that idea of like doing more of a white collar job, if they're just, hourly rate, you stay quiet, you get your benefits, and then you retire. A lot of people, that was the American dream. So it's like, why would you even shake the system? Like, that's the way this works. So they don't quite understand it. And I think that it's something that you have to kind of, I know I do it, you just have to kind of put what you're hearing to the side and just say, okay, this is a different ballpark. They fought for me to be in this ballpark, so I need to be negotiating. Like they spent tireless hours working to put me through X, Y, and Z school. So you almost owe it to them, even though they might not understand it. You owe it to them to like boss up and actually own the position that they were able to put you in by doing those jobs. So I think when you think about it in that way, it's more empowering. And you're like, okay, yeah, I better get what I'm supposed to get.
Right.
My mom, slaved away at 2 jobs for me to do this.
Literally,
so I think when you think about it that way, it helps you to get rid of any of the guilt that you might be feeling.
No, I agree for sure. Last thing I have for you: if Hillary isn't elected, what do you see? It's too broad of a question as I read it again, but questions about these are always real broad, right? But what do you see happening for Latinos and brown people all over this country, considering the alternative? So we're at this somewhat of a fever pitch. And what is it?
Yeah.
Less than a month now.
Yep.
So what do you see on the horizon if Hillary is not the first female president?
Well, I hate to be a person who is gloom and doom, but I see gloom and doom. This is a person who said that all Mexicans are rapists. This is the person who wants to build walls and to kick out immigrants who deserve to be here and who, aren't terrorists or violent. This is a person who believes that stop and frisk was the glory days of New York City. I mean, this is scary. Like you're talking about someone who is super, super volatile and is getting away with it with really no repercussions. So I believe that there's really no, and I'm not one of those people who feels like, oh, if you're not voting Democrat, the world is gonna just end. I'm not one of those at all.
Right.
I'm thinking that this goes beyond the Republican Party, and the sad thing is that you do have small pockets of people who, believe. And I'm in Queens, and there was a guy by my subway who had a "Make America Great Again" hat, and he was just yelling all of this racist stuff in a community of immigrants. I mean, we have everyone in my neighborhood. It's scary, and so. With someone, if Hillary is not elected, you're giving a voice to these people who believe really, really scary things. So I'm not too hopeful, and I'm the most hopeful person. I'm a rainbow, remember? But
No doubt.
I'm not too hopeful.
But then your Yeezy comes out and you say Donald J. Trump does not care about black people, right?
No, there you go.
Or anybody else who.
Yeah, Donald Trump does not care about you. That'll be my Yeezy mic drop for sure. Because it's just scary. It's not a good. I'm hopeful that Hillary will win. I'll put it that way. But I'm very, 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 very scared for the alternative, and I think everyone should be.
I agree, and I guess that's a good note to wrap on. Be scared of the alternative.
Yes, go vote.
No doubt. Well, see, that's a touchy subject because I'm actually looking at my voter registration card right here. You know what's really weird? I feel like I've been registered since I was 18, and they just mail it to me. I don't ever have to do anything. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's the case. Like it just shows up. Every year. I think it expires. Yeah, it's valid 1/1/16 to 12/17. It's not like I asked for a new one; it just came in the mail. So
good. That's good.
Well, you know what I mean. But I'm just saying that to say that I'm like, well, why aren't people already registered? But I know that goes. But I will say though that I still have not made up my mind whether or not I am going to the polls. So. As I hold this card, so I'm an undecided voter. I'm like, I don't know. I felt like sitting this one out, but I feel like the tide might be turning where I might go. But anyway, I guess I must feel guilty about it because I feel the need to say it publicly. So, but.
That's the thing too, that I'll always say. I know that people feel undecided for either way, but there was a point where we weren't allowed to vote. And so I take that very seriously. So I'm just like, I'm going to get out there and vote no matter, if I'm sort of on the fence, make the best informed decision. Because to think about it, this is a person, Trump is someone who'd rather you not vote. And so just because he'd rather you not vote and he doesn't want brown people out there voting, if they're not going to vote for him, then you need to vote. Because let's just give him the finger and do it.
Okay.
Actually, that was my Kanye drop.
That's a better note to wrap on. All right, I like that one. Okay. Yeah, okay. No, well, good. All right, well, cool. Well, no. Hey, thanks so much for coming on. I really think this was a really insightful conversation, and I hope
I enjoyed myself. Thanks for having me.
And no problem. Hopefully, we can have you on again. And so if I could just get you to do one thing for us, it's our liner. We keep them and we play them into perpetuity, so we can prove that we've had some cool people on the show. If you could identify yourself, where you're from, whatever, or you know what I mean. You know how to do it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If you could identify yourself and say that you're a part of the vocal minority, that would be awesome.
Okay, Okay, sure. I'm Jada Gomez. Okay, I always do these pretty well, and of course now I'm not doing okay.
Well, it's because I messed up. I flubbed on the setup, so I got in your head. It's all good.
And I'm saying, I'm a part of the vocal minority.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. I'm Jada Gomez, digital deputy editor at Latina.com, proud New Yorker, and I am part of the vocal minority.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday and making those dog treats. And so, yeah.
She's been very, very good, so she deserves them.
No doubt. So cool. Hey, well, again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Nice talking to you. Nice meeting you.
Of course. Same to you. Thanks. Nice meeting you too.
All right. Talk to you later. All right. All right. For sure.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Hey, welcome back. Very special thanks to Jada Gomez of Latina.com for coming on the show. I think we covered a lot of ground there, a lot of insight from her. Really liked her point of view. Make sure you check out Latina.com. Make sure you follow Jada at Jada Gomez on Twitter. The magazine is at Latina on Twitter. Follow the show at Vocal Report on Twitter. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Vocal Minority Report. Make sure you check out the website, www.thevocalminorityreport.com. Do the survey on there. Check out the guests. Send us an email from the website or to the show directly, vocalreport@gmail.com. Really important, go to iTunes, leave a rating, a review, share the show with people. Go to audibletrial.com for your free audiobook, audibletrial.com/vocal report. Well, I'll at you next episode. Peace.
This has been a Vocal Neighbors production.